Ladies and gentlemen, there was a time when she questioned everything about herself, her worth, her purpose, her voice. She carried wounds that no one could see, dreams that no one believed in. She fought silent battles in rooms where no one noticed her strength. But through the storms, through the heartbreaks, through the nights, she cried out for help. Something powerful began to rise inside her. This is not the story of a woman who never broke. It's the story of a woman who broke but rebuilt herself stronger. It's the story of a woman who looked at her reflection and said, I will not let the pain that tried to destroy me define me. She's becoming the woman who walks with grace but stands in power. A woman who knows when to let go and when to hold on. The woman who no longer chases love because she understands her worth attracts what aligns with her peace. Every scar became a map that guided her to her higher self. Tear became a seed that watered her wisdom. Every disappointment was the divine redirection that shaped her destiny. She's becoming the woman who leads with compassion but guards her energy. The woman who can comfort others without losing herself in the process. The woman who knows that healing is not weakness, it's warfare. Her journey wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Because the fire didn't come to destroy her, it came to reveal her. The pressure didn't come to crush her, it came to crown her. And now, when she walks into a room, peace follows her. When she speaks, wisdom flows through her. She no longer hides her power to make others comfortable because she finally understands that she was never meant to fit in. She was meant to stand out. She's becoming the woman she once needed. The woman who speaks life into herself, who chooses peace over chaos, who loves without losing her identity, and who stands unshakable no matter what life throws her way. There comes a moment in every woman's life when the pain becomes too loud to ignore, when the ache in her soul begins to demand her attention. It's not just the kind of pain that fades with time. It's the kind that cracks you open, that forces you to see what's been buried beneath years of pretending, pleasing, and surviving. She doesn't realize it at first. That breaking point isn't her downfall. It's the doorway to her transformation. Healing isn't pretty. It's not the soft, candle-lit version that people often imagine. It's messy. It's raw. It's waking up in the middle of the night with the tears in your eyes because your heart still remembers the things your mind is trying to forget. It's learning to sit in silence with your own truth, even when it shakes everything you thought you knew about yourself. Somewhere between the pain and the surrender, something shifts. What once felt like an ending starts to feel like a beginning. She begins to understand that healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about rewriting the story she tells herself about it. It's about turning wounds into wisdom and scars into strength. She starts to see herself differently. The woman who once begged for love now learns to give it to herself. The woman who once felt small now realizes she was never meant to shrink for anyone. She starts to look at her reflection and sees not what was broken, but what was built from the breaking. Every heartbreak, every disappointment, every failure, it all becomes part of the masterpiece. Healing teaches her patience. It doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't follow a straight path. Some days she feels powerful and free. Other days she feels like she's falling apart again. But even in those moments, she's growing. Because growth often disguises itself as discomfort. Healing is not a straight climb upward. It's a spiral, bringing her back to the same lessons until she's ready to rise above them. There was a time she thought strength meant keeping everything together. Now she understands that true strength is allowing herself to fall apart when she needs to and trusting that she will rise again. It's realizing that tears don't make her weak. They water the garden of her becoming. Healing has a strange way of showing her who she truly is. It strips away what isn't real, the masks, the expectations, the versions of herself she created just to survive. And underneath all that, she discovers her authentic self. The woman who knows her worth. The woman who doesn't chase because she attracts. The woman who understands that peace is priceless and that energy is sacred. Every scar tells a story now, not of pain, but of power, not of loss, of lessons learned. The same things that once broke her now remind her of her resilience. The moments that once made her question her faith now strengthen it. She realized that the very things she once ran from were the things that were shaping her. She begins to forgive, not because they deserved it, because she deserves peace. She releases bitterness, not to make others comfortable, but to make room for joy. Healing becomes her quiet revolution. It's her way of saying, I refuse to let what hurt me define me. Through this journey, she learns that healing isn't about becoming who she was before the pain. It's about becoming someone new, someone wiser, softer, stronger, and freer. She no longer seeks to return to who she used to be. She honors who she's becoming. Fire that once threatened to consume her now burns within her as purpose. The pressure that once weighed her down now refines her character. The solitude that once felt lonely now feels sacred because it's in the quiet where she meets herself. She begins to thank the storm for what it taught her, for showing her that she can survive what she thought would destroy her, for proving that her heart, no matter how many times it was shattered, still knows how to love, still knows how to hope, still knows how to believe. Healing teaches her that peace doesn't mean a life without pain. It means learning to dance with it, to grow through it, to rise above it. It means learning that her worth was never tied to how much she could endure, but how deeply she could love herself through it all. She no longer measures her healing by how happy she feels, but by how honest she can be with herself, by how quickly she forgives, how softly she speaks to her own soul. She stops comparing her journey to others and embraces the rhythm of her own unfolding with every season. She learns a little more about surrender, about trusting that every ending carries within it the seed of a new beginning. Every closed door is divine protection, that every unanswered prayer is redirection. Healing opens her eyes to see that nothing was wasted, not a single tear, not a single heartbreak, not a single delay. Now when she walks, she carries peace like a perfume that lingers in the air. When she speaks, her words carry power because they were born from experience. She no longer needs to prove her worth. Her presence is enough. She embodies the calm that once felt impossible. And when she looks back at the girl she used to be, the one who cried herself to sleep, the one who questioned her value, the one who thought she'd never recover, she smiles because that girl didn't know it then, but she was planting the seeds of the woman standing tall today. Healing as transformation means she no longer sees herself as a victim of her past, but as a creator of her future. It means she recognizes that pain was her teacher, not her prison. It means she now lives from a place of grace, gratitude, and grounded strength. There comes a time in every woman's journey when she grows tired of seeking approval from places that were never meant to recognize her value. For so long, she waited for someone to tell her she was enough, beautiful enough, strong enough, worthy enough. The day came when she realized that no one else's words could define the truth she already carried inside her. That was the day she began the sacred journey of self-validation. Self-validation isn't about arrogance or pride. It's about coming home to yourself. It's about looking in the mirror and knowing that your worth was never dependent on how others saw you. For years, she gave her power away, allowing opinions, rejection, and comparison to shape how she viewed herself. But somewhere along the way, she got tired of waiting for applause. She realized that the only validation that truly matters is the one she gives herself. At first, it feels unfamiliar. She's been conditioned to measure herself through external reflections, the likes, the compliments, the attention, the acceptance. Society taught her that her value is tied to her roles, how well she loves, how well she serves, how well she fits the image others expect her to be. But now she knows better. She's unlearning all of that. She's realizing that she doesn't need to shrink her light to make others comfortable, nor does she need to earn her right to exist in fullness. Self-validation begins in the quiet moments, when no one's watching, when the room is silent, and she's left alone with her thoughts. That's when she starts to speak differently to herself. Instead of criticizing every flaw, she starts to honor her reflection. Instead of asking, am I good enough? She starts saying, I am already enough. Her voice becomes softer, kinder, wiser. She begins to realize that the love she has been seeking from others was always meant to start with her. There was a time when every mistake haunted her. Every rejection felt like confirmation that she wasn't worthy. But through her healing, she learned that mistakes don't define her. They refine her. That rejection is not the end, it's redirection. Every no that broke her heart was really a yes to something better, aligned with her purpose. And when she began to see her journey through that lens, she stopped apologizing for being herself. She no longer chases validation because she understands that what's real doesn't require convincing. Her energy, her authenticity, spirit, they speak for her. The woman she is becoming doesn't need to prove anything. She simply is. She's learned that silence can be her strength and presence can be her power. Self-validation also means taking accountability for her happiness. It means she stops waiting for someone to save her, fix her, or make her feel whole. She stops looking outside for what can only be found within. She fills her own cup, learns her own rhythm, and celebrates her own growth. She no longer relies on applause to measure her worth because she understands that her value is not up for debate. When she validates herself, she stops negotiating her standards. She stops settling for halfway love or half-hearted attention. She understands that her boundaries are not walls. They are gates protecting her peace. She no longer explains why she chose to walk away from what didn't serve her. She simply does. That quiet confidence, rooted not in pride but in self-respect, becomes her power. There's a certain freedom that comes when she stops seeking approval. She begins to move differently. Her energy changes. She speaks from authenticity instead of fear. She dresses for herself. She celebrates herself. She builds herself up instead of waiting for someone else to do it. Every affirmation she once longed to hear from others, she now whispers to her own soul. Her confidence is no longer loud or performative, it's peaceful. It doesn't shout for attention, it radiates from within. Because real confidence doesn't demand to be seen, it simply is seen. It's in the way she carries herself, in the calm she brings into chaos, in the grace with which she handles both praise and criticism. Self-validation also teaches her to stop comparing her journey to others. She understands that everyone blooms in their own time. She stops measuring her worth against timelines, titles, or appearances. She embraces her unique process that what is hers cannot miss her. She trusts the timing of her life. In this new version of herself, she no longer begs to be chosen. She chooses herself daily. She wakes up each morning with gratitude, affirming her identity not through perfection, through presence. She no longer seeks love to fill a void. She gives love from the overflow of her healed heart. Self-validation is quiet but powerful. It's the subtle shift from "do they like me?" to "do I like who I am becoming?" It's the moment she realizes that her peace is too valuable to be traded for anyone's approval. It's the moment she learns that the same energy she used to seek acceptance is better spent building herself. There's something sacred about a woman who validates herself. She no longer hides her brilliance behind doubt. She doesn't second-guess her intuition or minimize her achievements. She claps for herself in seasons when no one else does. She celebrates her progress even when it's unseen. Through self-validation, she learns that her voice matters. She starts to speak up for herself, not out of anger, but from awareness. She stops people-pleasing and starts truth-living. She stops running after love and starts resting in her own wholeness. She doesn't fear being misunderstood because she understands herself deeply. She no longer lives for approval. She lives from authenticity. That shift changes everything. It changes how she loves, how she works, how she dreams. It liberates her from the chains of performance and perfection. She no longer wears masks to be accepted. She walks in her truth unapologetically. Beauty of it all is this: when she validates herself, she becomes magnetic. The world begins to mirror back the love, respect, and worth she has already given herself. She no longer attracts chaos because she no longer operates from emptiness. She attracts peace because she has become peace. She no longer fears being alone because she's learned that solitude is not loneliness, it's alignment. She knows how to sit with herself, love herself, and believe in herself. The validation she once begged for is now the foundation she stands upon. Now, When she looks at her reflection, she doesn't see the girl who once questioned her worth. She sees the woman who finally knows it. She doesn't ask for permission to shine, she just does. Her validation no longer depends on how others view her. It flows from the truth that she is worthy and whole exactly as she is. Self-validation is the highest form of freedom. It's the declaration that she no longer lives as a reflection of others' opinions, but as the embodiment of her own truth. It's choosing to love herself even when no one claps, even when no one notices, even when the world goes silent. Because she's learned the secret that changes everything. She was never meant to be completed by someone else. She was meant to remember she was whole all along. For so long, she believed that strength meant never breaking, never crying, never showing weakness. She thought that being strong meant keeping her walls high and her heart guarded. The world told her that vulnerability was dangerous, that to be soft was to be fragile, and to be open was to be foolish. But life, in its wisdom, began to show her something different, began to teach her that true strength isn't about how tightly she can hold everything together. It's about how courageously she can let go. Strength and vulnerability is not about collapsing under pressure. It's about standing tall in truth. It's about being brave enough to say, I'm hurting. It's about allowing herself to be seen, not the perfect, polished version that looks fine to the world. The real version that still trembles, still feels, still heals, because the strongest hearts are the ones that dare to remain open even after being broken. She used to think vulnerability made her a target. And in some ways, it did. It exposed her to disappointment, to rejection, to misunderstanding. It also opened the door to real connection, to deep healing, to authentic love. She learned that pretending to be invincible may protect her from pain. It also robs her of intimacy. Good is strength if it builds walls so high that no one can reach her heart. There was a time when she wore her independence like armor. She told herself she didn't need anyone, that she was fine on her own. And while solitude taught her resilience, also taught her the importance of being known, being understood, being held. She realized that strength and vulnerability are not enemies. They are twins born of truth. To be strong is to be real, and to be real is to be vulnerable. She started to see that vulnerability is not about weakness, it's about honesty. It's the courage to tell her story without editing the pain. It's the grace to admit when she doesn't have all the answers. It's the strength to ask for help when her soul feels heavy. That's not weakness, that's wisdom, because pretending to be unbreakable only delays healing, but admitting she's human opens the way to transformation. There's something powerful about a woman who can say, I'm not okay, and still rise. Who can admit that she's scared, but still show up? Who can cry and still keep walking? That kind of vulnerability doesn't weaken her spirit. It fortifies it. It builds her from the inside out. Vulnerability allows her to feel deeply, and feeling deeply is what makes her alive. She's learned that her emotions are not enemies to be silenced. They are messages from her soul. Her tears are not shameful. They are sacred releases. Her sensitivity is not a flaw. It's her superpower, because it takes immense strength to stay soft in a world that has tried to harden her. Through her vulnerability, she's learned the art of surrender. She no longer tries to control everything or force outcomes. She understands that control is just fear in disguise. So she lets go. She lets the process shape her. She allows herself to trust the unfolding, even when she doesn't understand it, because she's seen what happens when she resists, how it drains her spirit. And she's also seen what happens when she surrenders, how it sets her free. She's learned that her power is not in pretending she doesn't feel pain, but in allowing that pain to move through her, refine her, and awaken her. When she stopped fighting her emotions, she found peace. When she stopped hiding her scars, she found healing. Vulnerability became the bridge between her wounds and her wisdom. And in that space, she found something sacred: connection. Real connection. The kind built on appearances or perfection, but the kind built on truth. The kind where she could say, this is who I am, and be loved not despite it, because of it. Strength in vulnerability also means forgiving herself. for the time she stayed too long, believed too much, or tried too hard. It means looking at her past with compassion instead of criticism. She no longer sees herself as weak for caring deeply. She sees it as evidence of her capacity to love. Now, when she opens her heart, she does so not from desperation, but from fullness. Her vulnerability is no longer about seeking validation. It's about expressing authenticity. She shares her truth not because she wants to be understood, because she understands herself. There's a quiet confidence that comes with this kind of strength. She no longer hides her emotions out of fear of judgment. She no longer suppresses her voice to maintain peace. She speaks her truth with softness, not aggression, because she knows that vulnerability wrapped in grace is one of the most powerful forms of courage there is. When life hurts, she no longer asks, "Why me?" She asks, "What is this teaching me?" She's learned that pain is not punishment, it's a portal to deeper understanding. In allowing herself to feel it fully, she releases it completely. The things she once resisted, grief, disappointment, heartbreak, are now the very things that shaped her compassion, her empathy, her depth. The woman she is now doesn't hide behind perfection. She wears her scars as symbols of survival. She doesn't fear emotional transparency because she's seen how it sets her free. Tears are no longer a sign of defeat. They're proof of her resilience. Every time she opens her heart after being hurt, she wins another victory over fear. Vulnerability has taught her that she can be both strong and soft, both powerful and tender. She doesn't have to choose between the two. She can be both fully. She can be the storm and the calm, the warrior and the healer. That balance is what makes her extraordinary. When others look at her, they might see a gentle soul. But what they don't realize is that her gentleness was forged in fire. It took battles, breakdowns, and bravery to reach this peace. It took courage to keep her heart open in a world that tried to close it. And that courage, that quiet, steady, shakable courage is her true strength. She now understands that vulnerability is the birthplace of everything beautiful. It's where love begins. It's where creativity flows. It's where authenticity thrives. It's where her humanity meets her divinity. So now, she no longer apologizes for feeling deeply. She no longer hides her heart behind indifference. She walks in her truth with her head high and her heart open, because she knows that being real will cost her some people, but it will bring her peace. And peace is a price she's always willing to pay. Her vulnerability doesn't make her weak, it makes her unstoppable. Because she's no longer driven by fear of what others think. She's guided by the truth of who she is. She's learned that she can be hurt and still heal broken and still beautiful, uncertain, and still courageous. There is something breathtaking about a woman who embodies both grace and power. She doesn't have to choose between the two. She carries them both like twin wings, lifting her higher each day. Her power commands attention. Her grace earns respect. Her presence is gentle, yet unshakable. Her voice is calm, yet it carries weight. She is living proof that softness is not weakness. Strength is not harshness. Grace and power coexist beautifully within her, shaping her into the kind of woman who moves through life with purpose, poise, peace. Once upon a time, she believed she had to be one or the other. If she was strong, she couldn't be tender. If she was kind, she couldn't be bold. Enough, the world told her that she had to harden to survive. That compassion would make her vulnerable. That forgiveness would make her foolish. But life has a way of teaching what books cannot. Through her trials, through her heartbreaks, through her seasons of silence, she learned that real strength is not in how loud you roar, it's in how gracefully you rise after falling. It means she knows when to walk away without losing her peace. It means she doesn't have to match energy. She elevates it. It means she can face conflict with calmness, disappointment with dignity, and pain with perspective. Grace is the quiet confidence that whispers, I don't need to fight every battle because not everything deserves my energy, and yet her grace doesn't take away from her power. It amplifies it. Power is not in intimidation, but in influence. It's not in control, but in composure. She doesn't dominate rooms by force. She transforms them by presence. Her strength doesn't come from needing to prove herself. It flows from knowing who she is. She's learned that power without grace can destroy. Grace without power can be dismissed. So she walks in both. She knows when to speak and when to stay silent, when to hold on and when to let go, when to be still and when to move mountains. Her discernment is her crown. Her patience is her armor. Her grace is not weakness, it's wisdom wrapped in elegance. There was a time when she used to confuse gentleness with passivity. She thought she had to be loud to be heard or aggressive to be taken seriously. But she discovered that her calmness unsettled the chaos around her. Her silence, when rooted in purpose, spoke louder than her anger ever could. She learned that grace doesn't mean you lack fire. It means you've learned how to control it. Grace gives her the ability to love without losing herself, to forgive without forgetting what she's worth. It allows her to move with empathy while keeping her boundaries firm. She doesn't respond to every insult because she's learned that reaction is easy, but restraint is power. When they try to provoke her, she smiles, not out of weakness, because she knows who she is, and that is enough. Her power, though, is not something she flaunts. It's something she embodies. It's in her resilience, in her ability to keep showing up even when life tries to break her. It's in her refusal to let bitterness define her, in her decision to choose light even in the darkest seasons. She has faced storms that others didn't see, battles that left her breathless. She still stands, and not just standing, she's standing tall, with her head held high and her heart open. That's power. What keeps her radiant is her grace, because grace softens the edges that pain tried to sharpen. Grace helps her forgive herself for the time she stayed silent, for the time she accepted less, for the time she lost herself trying to be loved. Grace teaches her that strength is not about never falling. It's about rising with humility each time she does. Grace whispers to her that she doesn't have to rush the process, that her pace is sacred. Power tells her she can do hard things. Grace reminds her she doesn't have to do them all at once. Power fuels her ambition. Grace protects her peace. Together, they keep her balance grounded and glowing. When she walks into a room, you can feel it. Her presence is steady, but her spirit is soft. She doesn't compete, she connects. She doesn't demand respect. She earns it effortlessly. She doesn't chase validation. She carries self-assurance. Her very being speaks a language that says, I am at peace with who I am, and that peace is my strength. There's a certain elegance in how she moves through life now. She no longer reacts from pain. She responds from power. She no longer fights for attention. She radiates authenticity. She no longer explains her worth. She embodies it. Grace has taught her that she doesn't need to shout to be heard, and power has taught her that she doesn't need to shrink to be loved. Grace comes from the divine part of her spirit. It's the calm that kept her steady when the storm raged. Power comes from experience. It's the result of everything she survived. She doesn't need to justify her strength. She's earned it. She doesn't need to hide her gentleness. It's her gift. She has mastered the art of balance. In her softness, there's fire. In her silence, there's strategy. In her smile, there's a story of battles won in secret. She doesn't need validation to move. She's guided by vision. She doesn't need revenge. Her peace is her proof that she's healed. Grace and power coexist beautifully in her because she's learned that one without the other leaves her incomplete. Too much power without grace hardens the heart. Too much grace without power leaves it unprotected. But when they come together, they create something divine. A woman who's both gentle enough to nurture and strong enough to lead. She's not moved by chaos anymore. She's moved by clarity. She doesn't chase opportunities. She attracts them. She doesn't beg to be seen. Her energy makes her unforgettable. Grace allows her to see the humanity in others, and power allows her to see the divinity in herself. Now, she uses her grace to heal and her power to build. She leads not by force, but by example. She lifts others as she climbs. She knows that her influence is not measured by how loud she speaks, by how deeply her presence impacts. When she prays, it's not out of fear, but out of gratitude. When she moves, it's not out of insecurity, out of conviction. She's learned to walk in rooms that once intimidated her with her head high and her heart open, knowing she belongs there. Not because she's perfect, but because she's prepared. Grace and power are no longer opposites in her story. They are partners. They dance within her, harmonizing her strength and serenity. She's no longer defined by her past. She's refined by it. No longer living in survival mode. She lives in alignment. She no longer asks, can I do this? She knows she can, and she will. She is the woman who can walk away without bitterness and return without pride. She is the woman who can bless those who wronged her and love those who doubted her. She is the woman who understands that grace is not a sign of weakness. It is the evidence of her evolution and her power. It's not in how she dominates, in how she endures. It's not in how she controls others, but in how she controls herself. It's not in what she says, but in what she embodies. There comes a sacred moment in every woman's evolution when she realizes that peace is not something the world gives her. It's something she must protect. For years, she poured herself into people, places, and situations that left her drained. She gave her time to those who didn't value it, her love to those who didn't reciprocate it, and her energy to those who didn't deserve it. But now she's awakened to a deeper truth. Her energy is her currency, and not everyone has earned the right to spend it. She's learning that boundaries are not barriers, they are bridges to peace. They are not punishments, they are protection. Setting them doesn't mean she loves less, it means she loves herself enough to stop bleeding for what no longer feeds her. She's no longer afraid to say no. She understands that no is a complete sentence, not an apology. She no longer feels guilty for choosing rest over chaos, solitude over company, silence over meaningless conversation. Once upon a time, she thought kindness meant endless availability. She thought compassion meant self-sacrifice. Experience became her greatest teacher. It showed her that pouring from an empty cup isn't love, it's depletion. It taught her that peace can't exist where boundaries are absent. So now she honors her limits not out of fear, but out of wisdom. She knows that everything she allows teaches others how to treat her. Boundaries are her way of saying, I respect my peace. They are her invisible armor, gentle but firm. She doesn't build walls to shut people out. Enough. She builds gates that open only to what aligns with her peace. She's no longer accessible to everything and everyone because she knows not every connection is sacred and not every invitation deserves acceptance. There was a time when she mistook overgiving for love, when she thought that if she gave enough, people would finally see her worth. But love built on exhaustion isn't love, it's survival. She learned that the ones who truly care for her will never demand that she abandon herself to keep them comfortable. Real love honors boundaries. Real love respects space. She understands now that protecting her energy is not selfish. It's sacred work. It's choosing not to engage in every argument, not to absorb every emotion, not to carry what isn't hers to hold. It's recognizing when her spirit feels heavy and having the courage to step back and recalibrate. It's saying, I'm not available for that energy, and meaning it. Her peace is her sanctuary. She's learned to guard it the way a queen guards her crown. Not with fear, but with discernment. She can sense now when someone's presence drains her light or disturbs her calm. Her intuition has become sharper, her spirit more attuned. She no longer ignores the tension in her body. When something doesn't feel right, she listens. She trusts her inner voice because it has never lied to her. Boundaries don't make her cold, they make her clear. They don't close her heart, they keep it healthy. She's realized that boundaries are how she teaches the world that she values her energy, her time, and her healing. They are acts of self-respect. They are spiritual alignment in action. Protecting her energy also means being mindful of what she consumes, the conversation she entertains, the content she watches, the company she keeps. All of it affects her vibration. She no longer tolerates gossip, negativity, or constant drama. She knows that her mind is a garden and she's careful about the seeds she allows to be planted there. She's learned that she can't bloom in toxic soil. So she curates her environment like an artist. She surrounds herself with peace, inspiration, and authenticity. She no longer chases noisy spaces. She thrives in quiet ones. Her solitude, once mistaken for loneliness, has become her sanctuary, because in solitude she recharges, reconnects, and realigns. There's power in the way she now says, I need time for myself. Power in how she walks away from conversations that disturb her peace. Power in how she chooses to rest instead of constantly proving her worth. Power in how she lets go of relationships that thrive only on chaos. She doesn't fight for attention anymore. She fights for alignment. People may not always understand her boundaries. She no longer seeks understanding from those who haven't done the inner work. She knows that those who are meant to stay will respect her space. Those who resist it were never meant to stay. She no longer apologizes for protecting her energy because she knows that her peace is the foundation of her purpose. Without it, she cannot create, love, or serve at her highest capacity. There's a sacred boldness in the way she now honors her limits. When something doesn't feel right, she no longer explains or defends. She simply steps back. When her soul feels uneasy, she takes it as guidance, not guilt. She's learned that boundaries are not walls. They are the framework of a healthy, peaceful life. Her energy is precious now. She spends it wisely. She no longer invests it in situations that steal her joy or drain her focus. She gives her energy only to what reciprocates purpose, healing, peace, growth, and genuine love. She's learned that protecting her energy is the same as protecting her destiny. There's a certain freedom that comes with this awareness. She no longer feels obligated to attend every argument she's invited to. She no longer entertains people who misunderstand her silence. She's okay with being misunderstood if it means being at peace. She's okay with disappointing others if it means staying true to herself. And through it all, she remains graceful. Her boundaries don't come with bitterness. They come with calm assurance. She doesn't shout them, she simply lives them. She doesn't demand respect, her energy commands it. People feel her peace and know instinctively not to disturb it. Her life is lighter now. Spirit feels freer. She wakes up with clarity instead of confusion, calm instead of chaos. She's learned that peace is not found in the absence of noise, in the presence of alignment. Every no she's spoken has opened a new door to serenity. Every boundary she's set has brought her closer to her highest self. She no longer seeks validation for prioritizing her well-being. She knows that only she can protect her energy. No one else will do it for her. She's learned to fill her days with what nurtures her soul-quiet mornings, meaningful conversations, purposeful work, and self-reflection. She's learned that joy multiplies in protected spaces, and so she moves differently now. Yes, carries power because it's no longer automatic, it's intentional. Presence carries weight because it's no longer scattered, it's centered. Her life is no longer dictated by obligation. It's guided by peace. Boundaries are her way of saying, I choose me. Energy protection is her way of saying, I honor what sustains me. Together, they form the foundation of a woman who no longer runs on empty, but overflows with divine energy. She knows that protecting her peace is not rejection of others, it's devotion to herself. She understands that saying no to chaos is saying yes to clarity. Saying no to distractions is saying yes to destiny. Now, when she walks into a room, she carries a calmness that others can feel. Her energy is grounded, her aura protected, her spirit centered. She is not easily shaken, not easily swayed. She has become a woman whose presence speaks before she does. A woman who glows with the peace she fought to protect. Pain is a teacher that no one volunteers to learn from, yet it teaches the deepest lessons of life. It doesn't knock politely, it breaks doors. Shatters comfort. It strips away illusions until only truth remains. Pain has a way of forcing transformation, and though it often feels cruel in the moment, becomes the birthplace of purpose for those who choose not to be defeated by it. She didn't always understand that. There was a time when her pain felt pointless. Every heartbreak, every disappointment, every loss, it all felt like punishment. She asked questions that echoed in the dark. Why me? When will this end? What did I do to deserve this? But in the silence, the world stopped answering. She began to hear something sacred, the whisper of purpose of forming beneath the pain. It started small. Quiet realization that every wound carried wisdom. Every ending was preparing her for a new beginning. Every heartbreak was cleansing her spirit of what could not stay for the next chapter. She realized that pain wasn't trying to destroy her, it was trying to awaken her. The truth is, pain changes everything. It humbles the proud, deepens the shallow, strengthens the broken, and softens the hardened. It reshapes the way we see life and love. It refines character and builds compassion. For her, pain became the sculptor that chiseled away everything false until only what was real remained. In her darkest seasons, she discovered the depth of her resilience. She found out that she could survive what she thought would destroy her. When she had nothing left but her breath, she learned that even breath was enough to begin again. When the people she counted on walked away, she found that solitude wasn't a sentence, it was sanctuary. Through the tears, she learned endurance. Through the silence, she learned to listen. Through the disappointment, she learned to depend on herself. And through it all, she found a strength that could not have been born in comfort. Purpose was never meant to be born in perfection. It is birthed in brokenness. The most powerful women are not those who have never fallen, but those who have fallen, learned, and risen with clarity. Her purpose was hidden in the very places she prayed to escape. Pain she begged to be delivered from was the same pain that was delivering her to her destiny. There came a moment when she stopped asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and started asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" That shift changed everything. Pain was no longer her prison. It became her path. She stopped seeing herself as a victim and started walking as a vessel. She understood that everything she endured was equipping her to help someone else survive their storm. Every scar became a story of survival. Every tear became a testament of transformation. Her pain gave her perspective. It deepened her empathy, sharpened her discernment, expanded her capacity to love. Because only those who have known deep pain can offer deep compassion. Only those who have walked through the fire can truly guide others out of it. There's a kind of beauty that only emerges after breaking, a glow that comes from being rebuilt. She wears that beauty now. It's not the shine of perfection, the light of perseverance. Her smile no longer hides her past, it honors it. Because without it, she wouldn't be the woman she is today. Her pain didn't end her story, it rewrote it. It gave her a message that carries healing. It gave her the courage to speak life into places where others only see loss. It gave her the authority to say, "I've been there, and I know you can make it too." She's no longer ashamed of what broke her because she understands that pain was the doorway to purpose. There's something sacred about pain. It strips away pretense. It brings us face to face with who we truly are. It makes us surrender control and trust something greater than ourselves. She learned to stop resisting what she was meant to rise through. She stopped cursing the fire and started letting it refine her. The truth is, she didn't find purpose by avoiding pain. She found it by walking through it with faith. She realized that pain was not punishment, it was preparation. It was preparing her to become a voice for the voiceless, strength for the weary, light for the lost. It was carving out a depth in her spirit that joy alone could never reach. Now, when she looks back, she no longer feels bitterness. She feels gratitude. Gratitude for the pain that broke her open, for the losses that taught her detachment, for the delays that developed her patience. She can finally say, "If I hadn't gone through that, I wouldn't have become this." Every painful chapter led her closer to alignment. What once made her question her worth now fuels her mission. What once made her cry now makes her compassionate. What once left her empty now gives her purpose. She understands now that her pain was never wasted. It was divine strategy. When life tore her apart, purpose gathered the pieces and rearranged them into something stronger. When she was stripped of everything familiar, purpose clothed her in wisdom. When she was lost, purpose found her. She doesn't run from pain anymore. She listens to it. She lets it shape her, not shatter her. She allows it to break what needs breaking and birth what needs to be born. Because she knows that on the other side of every breaking is a becoming. Her pain taught her how to stand tall in storms. It taught her to find peace in uncertainty. It taught her that she can be hurting and healing at the same time. Through that process, she became the woman she once needed, a woman who understands that purpose isn't found in avoiding pain, but in transforming it. Now, When she speaks, her words carry the weight of experience. Her presence offers calm to those still caught in chaos. She has become a living reminder that pain doesn't have to end you. It can elevate you. Her life whispers the truth that what breaks you can also build you. What hurts you can also heal you. She's no longer angry at the process because she sees its perfection. The same pain that made her weep also made her wise. The same storms that scared her also strengthened her. The same seasons that broke her also built her. Pain was the path, but purpose was the promise. And now she walks in that promise, grateful, grounded, and guided. She carries her scars not as shame, as symbols of survival. Each one tells the story of a woman who turned suffering into strength, wounds into wisdom, and loss into legacy. And so she stands now, not as a victim of what happened, but as a vessel of what was birthed through it. Her purpose was forged in the fire, and she walks now with the quiet power of one who knows. There comes a time in every woman's journey when she realizes that fitting in is far more exhausting than standing out. For too long, she tried to mold herself into what others expected her to be. She softened her voice so it wouldn't sound too strong, hid her emotions so she wouldn't seem too sensitive, and dimmed her light so it wouldn't outshine anyone else's. Something inside her began to break, not from rebellion, but from truth. The truth that she was never created to be a copy. She was born to be her own masterpiece. She used to chase acceptance because she thought it meant belonging. She thought if she could just please everyone, no one would leave. But in trying to be everything for everyone, she lost herself. She realized one day that she had been performing instead of living. And that kind of pretending, where you hide your true heart just to be liked, drains the soul. She stopped apologizing for being herself. She stopped editing her spirit to make others comfortable. She stopped betraying her truth for temporary approval. She began to understand that real love doesn't require performance. It welcomes presence. Authenticity is not loud, it's liberating. It's the quiet confidence that comes from knowing who you are, even when others don't understand you. She learned that the price of authenticity is often misunderstanding, but the reward is peace. And peace became her priority. There were moments when walking in truth was lonely. The world loves imitation, it fears individuality. But she found that solitude was not punishment, purification. Alone, she rediscovered her voice. Alone, she remembered her purpose. Alone, she realized that being authentic meant being whole, even if it meant standing alone for a while. She began to peel away every layer that wasn't hers, the expectations, the masks, the people-pleasing habits, the silent agreements that said she should shrink to be accepted. Each time she let something false fall away, she felt lighter, freer, more powerful. Authenticity doesn't always look pretty. Sometimes it means speaking up when silence would be safer. Sometimes it means walking away from circles that no longer reflect your values. Sometimes it means saying, this is who I am, even when others disapprove. Every act of truth brings you closer to your essence. She realized that she could no longer trade her peace for acceptance, because acceptance built on pretending isn't real. It's conditional love, and conditional love never satisfies the soul. She didn't want to be liked for her mask. She wanted to be loved for her truth. There is a sacred power that rises when a woman decides to live unfiltered. She stops asking for permission to exist. She stops shrinking to fit into small spaces. She stops explaining why her dreams are too big, her emotions too deep, energy too strong. She understands now that her authenticity is her anointing. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. Being authentic taught her discernment. She learned to recognize who truly loved her and who only loved her convenience. When she stopped pretending, the wrong people drifted away, but the right ones found her. Because authenticity doesn't repel what's meant for you, it refines it. The truth is, authenticity costs you people, but it gives you peace. It costs you approval, but it grants you purpose. It costs you comfort, but it builds character. And she chose peace, purpose, and character over applause. She began to see that authenticity isn't about perfection, it's about presence. It's about showing up fully, flaws and all, and saying, I'm still worthy. She no longer hides the parts of herself that are healing. She embraces her scars, her softness, her contradictions. She's both strong and tender, confident and curious, grounded and growing. There was a time when she silenced her truth to keep the peace, but now she knows that peace built on silence is fake harmony. Real peace comes from honesty. She doesn't fear confrontation anymore because she understands that confrontation isn't always conflict, it's clarity. And clarity is freedom. Every time she chooses authenticity over acceptance, she honors her soul. Every time she speaks her truth, even when her voice trembles, she reclaims her power. Every time she refuses to wear a mask to make someone else comfortable, she strengthens her spirit. Authenticity has become her shield and her light. It protects her from the exhaustion of pretending, and it illuminates the path for others who are still lost in the darkness of approval. She's learned that when she stands in truth, she becomes a mirror, showing others what it looks like to live unapologetically. Her relationships have changed, but they've deepened. She no longer entertains connections built on performance. She doesn't beg to be understood. She doesn't chase validation. The people who are meant for her see her soul, not just her surface. They love her in her silence, respect her in her strength, and walk with her in her truth. There's a stillness in her now, a calm confidence that comes from no longer needing to prove herself. She no longer hustles for acceptance. She flows in authenticity. She no longer hides her light. She lets it shine without apology because she knows if her light makes someone uncomfortable, they can adjust their shade. Authenticity requires courage. The courage to disappoint others in order to be true to yourself. Courage to walk away from people who loved your mask but never met your soul. The courage to start over and say, this time, I'll be me. And though it wasn't easy, it was worth it because pretending was killing her spirit. Every lie, every act, every false smile stole a little piece of her truth. But truth always wins. It always calls you home. And when she finally answered that call, she felt free for the first time. Authenticity is freedom because it removes the weight of performance. She doesn't have to be perfect. She just has to be real. She doesn't have to know everything. She just has to show up as herself. She doesn't have to convince anyone to see her value. She embodies it by living her truth. Her life now feels lighter because it's no longer a performance. It's a prayer. Every day she chooses honesty over image, depth over display, meaning over approval. She knows that authenticity aligns her with her purpose, while pretending only delays her destiny. She's learned that not everyone will understand her authenticity, and that's okay. Some will misjudge her confidence as arrogance, her honesty as rudeness, her boundaries as coldness. She's no longer explaining herself to those committed to misunderstanding her. Her peace no longer depends on their perception. Every day, she chooses authenticity over acceptance. And that choice, though small, is revolutionary. It's a declaration that says, I am no longer living for their approval. I am living for my alignment. She has become a woman rooted in truth, radiant in spirit, and free in purpose. She no longer seeks validation from the world because she knows the world didn't give her worth. So the world can't take it away. Authenticity has become her peace, her power, her protection. It's the quiet force behind her confidence, the glow behind her grace. And now she walks with the wisdom of one who has learned that pretending keeps you liked, but authenticity keeps you alive. There comes a time when a woman realizes that her story was never just about her. Every struggle she's overcome, every tear she's wiped away, every mountain she's climbed, it all carries meaning far beyond her own life. She begins to see that her journey, with all its pain and perseverance, is building something greater, a legacy of strength. This legacy doesn't start in moments of triumph. It begins in moments of endurance. It begins in those nights when she cried in silence, but still got up the next morning to face the world. It begins in the quiet prayers whispered when no one saw her breaking. It begins in the times she felt unseen, unheard, and unappreciated, yet she chose not to give up. Her strength wasn't built in comfort, it was forged in the fire. A legacy of strength isn't about never falling, it's about always rising. It's about learning that grace and grit can coexist. She understands now that her resilience is her inheritance to the world. Every time she chose to stand tall in the storm, she was teaching someone else how to survive their own. Every time she chose love over bitterness, forgiveness over revenge, and peace over chaos, she was leaving a mark deeper than words. She knows now that true strength doesn't roar, sometimes it whispers. It's in the decision to heal instead of hate. It's in the choice to stay kind in a world that wasn't kind to her. It's in the ability to smile again after life tried to break her spirit. She's learned that her power isn't in how loud she speaks, but in how deeply she stands. There was a time when she believed strength meant holding everything together. Now she understands that sometimes strength is knowing when to let go. Strength is choosing herself. Strength is resting without guilt, crying without shame, and rising again without apology. It's not about being unbreakable. It's about being unyielding. It's about falling apart and rebuilding stronger, wiser, softer. Her legacy of strength isn't built through perfection. It's built through persistence. Every mistake taught her humility. Every setback taught her resilience. Every heartbreak taught her compassion. She's no longer ashamed of the cracks in her soul, because she knows they're where the light comes in. Her scars aren't symbols of defeat. They're proof that she survived. She carries her story now with pride. She's not hiding her past anymore. She's honoring it, because her past is the foundation of her power. The woman she is today was shaped by the woman who refused to quit yesterday. And that unshakable spirit, the one that kept showing up when everything said, stop, that's the strength she'll leave behind. Her legacy isn't measured in achievements or applause. It's measured in impact. It's seen in the people she's lifted, the hearts she's healed, the wisdom she's shared, and the love she's given even when she had little left to give. Her life itself is a message you can overcome. You can rise again. You can rebuild after breaking. She may never know who watched her quietly and found hope in her resilience. She may never know whose life was touched by her kindness or whose faith was restored by her courage. But she knows this nothing she's endured was wasted. Challenge became a seed planted in the soil of legacy. She's building something eternal, not in material possessions, but in spirit. The energy she carries will outlive her name. The peace she radiates will echo through generations. The strength she embodies will ripple into the hearts of women she may never meet, women who will rise because she did. A legacy of strength is not about being remembered for what she had, but for who she became. It's not about the spotlight, it's about the substance. It's about living in such truth and power that even when she's gone, her essence remains. She's learned that every act of healing becomes a gift to the world. Every boundary she sets teaches someone else self-respect. Every time she forgives, she releases another generation from bitterness. Every time she chooses faith over fear, she strengthens the spiritual lineage of those who will follow. Her daughters, her sisters, her friends. They may not always understand the battles she fought, but they will feel her courage in their bones. They will inherit her strength in the way they stand tall through their storms, because strength, once cultivated, never dies. It transfers. The way she carries herself now, with grace under pressure and love after pain, becomes her legacy in motion. She doesn't need to announce it. She doesn't need to prove it. Her energy speaks for her. Her presence brings calm. Her words bring comfort. Her life brings hope. And even when she leaves this world, her legacy will continue. It will live in the laughter of those she inspired, in the resilience of those she encouraged, quiet faith of those she touched. Her strength will echo through time because it was never about her alone. It was about what her spirit ignited in others. She is the living proof that endurance has purpose, that even broken hearts can become holy ground. The woman who almost gave up became the woman others now look up to. She is the evidence that survival can be sacred and strength can be gentle. Her legacy isn't loud, it's lasting. It's in the lessons she's lived, not the ones she's preached. It's in her ability to keep loving after being hurt, to keep believing after being disappointed, and to keep shining after walking through the dark. She's no longer just surviving. She's sowing seeds of strength wherever she goes. Seeds that will bloom in others long after she's gone. Seeds of courage and self-worth. Because when a woman rises healed, she lifts generations. Now she walks with a quiet knowing. Everything she's endured was shaping her to carry this legacy. The storms weren't sent to destroy her. They were sent to deepen her roots. The fire didn't burn her out. It burned away everything that wasn't real. What remains now is pure, unwavering strength, the kind that sustains not just one life, but many. Her legacy of strength isn't a monument made of stone, it's a spirit made of resilience. It lives in the hearts she's touched, the peace she's shared, truth she's spoken. It's eternal. So when she looks back at her life, she doesn't see a story of suffering, she sees a masterpiece of endurance. She sees how every trial taught her grace, how every fall led her higher, and how every tear became part of a testimony that will outlast her lifetime.